Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. I just needed to check and get questions by thumbs up, please. So we could be in a position to start. Can you hear me, everyone? I don't see any responses. Hello, are you there? Just started. So get you right in. Thank you so much. I do see that many of you accessed the session early than you were supposed to. But that's going to create a serious problem. It means that our session is going to be cut right before I launch. So what I'm going to try and do is to do what I would call a drive-by shooting and rush into my discussions and my presentation as fast as I can in order to ensure that we do the right thing. Right. Now, please note, I am going to use a colleague's um, presentation in Wedig has put together this fantastic material. So before I begin, I'd like to send a shout out to Mrs. Matthews at Dinwiddie High School for such a pleasant document with which to work. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us live by way of YouTube. Thank you so much, Mr. Kosam, for organizing these sessions so that we are able to cover everyone in our sessions. Now, let's get to business, ladies and gents. We're going to look at the general advice and tips on how to approach a literary essay. Now, the first thing that I need to get out of the way is the fact that a literary essay is not an essay that allows a narrative approach. What do I mean by that? You are not going to narrate the drama you are studying. We already know what takes place in Hamlet, in the Crucible, as well as Othello. So at this point, if you are going to retell, then it's going to become a problem because it means you're not going to be able to grapple with the topic, and neither will you be able to sufficiently discuss it, because we are not testing the recall approach. We are not testing whether you recall or you remember instances. That is why we are going to give you a topic which you are going to work on by bringing in your knowledge of the play. Right. You need to make sure that your thesis statement is clear, objective, and multifaceted. I'll explain that as we go along the process here. So what is the point are you trying to make? Must be at the center of this discussion. You are not retelling anything but there is a point you are making in terms of addressing the topic that is right before you. Don't leave the reader guessing. Now remember, throughout the year, you have been marked by your fantastic educators. They are quite aware of your voice, writing, print. They know when it is you who wrote, and they're able to pick up when somebody else have done the writing for you. So sometimes, because of how close we are to our learners, and sometimes we feel pity towards you to say, hey, if I don't give this one a mark that allows them to pass, then they're not going to make it. So sometimes I compromise my marking because I am thinking over the fact that, shame man, you need these particular marks. Now at this point, you are going to be marked by a Mogane who has no knowledge of you. I have never seen you, neither do I know your writing, voice, print. So if your teacher understood the type of writing that was a bit vaguish, at this point you need to be as clear as possible, because at the back of your mind you are thinking of the next person who not only is going to read, but they are going to assess that particular work. So make sure in your discussion you are as specific as possible, using examples and details from the drama to support your position or your analysis, your explanation, or your argument, because various essay topics require a certain approach that could be analytic or analytical, could be explanatory or argumentative. You'll see this by to what extent do you agree with this? So you'll be given a statement and then you'll be asked, so to what extent do you agree with that statement? Or you will have to give an analysis of a particular character. Let's look at a Dorian Gray type of a character. You would be asked to assess the validity of the fact that Gray's life was compromised and was taken out of tune because of the two male figures that has caused a certain philosophy to permeate his thinking as well as his modus operandi. I love that term, and it makes my heart break to hear learners say, I didn't know the answer for that. I mean, it was written in italics because it's a non-English word within an English text. So we are looking at the essence, what to describe, and you want to describe rather what a text is doing and precisely how it does it. And this is looking at ironies and paradoxes, symbolism, point of view, tone, diction, and other literary rhetorical devices. Now, please note, rhetorical devices are not rhetorical questions. Rhetorical, or the rhetoric, is an art of speaking to persuade. So part of the rhetoric would also include figures of speech that you are able to use in order to drive your message across. The next point, make use of the complex sentence structures to show complicated ideas. Now, you need not to be ambiguous in your discussion. Make sure that the levels of interpretation are quite clear and logic. And if you're dealing with characters within your discussion, you need to ensure that character development comes through as conspicuous as possible. So as you do so, please consider using these words to begin particular arguments. Although this is that, one would consider that because, if, while, since, and whether. Use active, concrete verbs to describe what the literary significance of certain characters, symbols, and settings and tones. Now we are looking at this demonstrates that, or Dorian's behavior at this point of the play illustrates that. Dorian's actions towards Sybil Vane reveals that. Or Basil Hallward's portrait signifies that, or it represents a pure character or characteristics, or it characterizes purity in the life of our character Dorian. This portrays that, and this symbolizes that, which indicates that. Now, once you start using these concrete verbs or active verbs, you are making your writing as clear as possible, as clear as a whistle. You may use prepositional phrases and adjectival clauses to start sentences when this happens, or whenever that takes place in the scene, or after, before, between, besides that, as a result, for instance, for an example, during which, in essence, and then you may also want to say, by contrast, when you start bringing in the counter argument in your writing. Make sure to use transitional words and phrases to organize your ideas logically as well as chronologically. So such as consequently, this and this and this takes place, and then consequently, Dorian begins to step the portrait and thus ends his life. Accordingly, however, furthermore, moreover, similarly to that, whereas likewise, subsequently, thereupon, conversely, nevertheless. Now again, we don't want you to be in that situation of trying these things for the first time. Remember, this is a revision that is considering the exposure to the writing of a literary essay that we have exposed you to since your grade 10 journey all the way to where you are. So we truly do not wish to see you at a point where you don't even know how to approach certain things here. Right. Just allow me to do something here. Okay. Let's go back. Right. I want us to look at the don'ts of this particular writing. Make sure to avoid the use of first person pronouns. Such as I, me, my, mine, etc. Now, remember, this is objective writing. It's not subjective. You are analyzing a text objectively. So we need to avoid, in my opinion, I believe that my take of this, mine in this essay is to indicate that, avoid that. And then avoid to start sentences with common dead words, such as it, they, a, and. It is seen that there are better ways of beginning your argument without using these dead common words. Now, don't use dull words such as got, really, very, a lot, like. Don't merely summarize. We already know. All the colleagues who are joining us today might have had a chance of teaching Dorian Gray, Life of Pi, Othello, The Crucible, and Hamlet in their history of being teachers. So we already know what happens in each of these particular set work. So we don't really need you to explain or retell anything, because that's not the function of a literary essay. Now, don't use passive voice or to be verbs. Is, was, were, am, are, being. Now, the other thing that I want us to look at, which is not here, avoid using the past tense. Remember, you are analyzing the work now. So therefore, it is current. Dorian seems to be a very selfish man, and this is seen through his, then you explain what action he performs that indicates the issue of selfishness. So don't use expressions such as Dorian was found in. It was evident that he didn't love Sybil Vane. Now, you are analyzing the text now. So ensure that you keep your discussion in the present tense. Now, we want you to write objectively, as I've already spoken. You need to make logical connections and support your claims with textual evidence. So if you say Dorian is, or you are saying Gertrude couldn't wait to be with Claudius, that's a serious claim that you're making. How do you know that she couldn't wait? This is evident in Hamlet's words when he has his soliloquy and he says, woman, thy name is frailty. So it means that she has a frailty or a weakness that leads, now listen to this, I did not say that led, but that leads to her inability to wait. Moreover, Hamlet's assertion to the number of months within which this marriage between his uncle and his mother are very much concerning, because they also indicate the impatience of Gertrude. Now, what have I done here? I have made a claim, and therefore supported the very same claim with a textual evidence. Make sure to keep it organized. Now, boys and girls, you can't keep anything organized if, first of all, planning was ignored. We are always asked this question, am I supposed to plan? The answer is yes. You can't throw a party today and then tomorrow sit down with a pen and paper to then plan to say, I wish to invite so and so was here yesterday. So you start off by planning. Plan, and that plan is going to help you get organized. It's going to help your discussion in terms of its coherence. When we mark at the marking center, the first thing that we know this essay is not going to be a good one is by a lack of a planning. And as you start reading, your assumptions become or are concretized, because one moment you are on this note, the next moment you are on, there's no organization, you are all over the show. And this is because you never planned. Similarly, writing an essay and then trying to have your planning from it is also not a good idea. Make sure to plan, be on point and succinct. Use a variety of words, a variety of sentence structures, as well as examples. Now let's quickly go through some strategies here. Use very specific vocab. Now, vague, abstract words can make it difficult for your reader to know exactly what you mean. So you know what you mean when you use those terms, but it is likely that your reader is not so sure. Now, let me give you an example. A number of essays had this use of the word demure. And as you're marking, like you're coming across the fact that Sybil Vane was demure, or Gertrude was, and if I don't know what demure means, it sets me off, because I get to a point where your essay does not make sense to me as the marker. Please avoid using social media language. Please, guys. We are not your peers. We may know your language that you use, but in the academic spaces, the academe is the language. So you keep it as formal as you can. And part of keeping the formality is understanding the register with which to write this essay. So your register is always formal. And part of having formal words is excluding contractions. What are contractions? Words that are shortened, such as isn't, don't, couldn't. Don't use that in an essay. Be sure that the words the reader is reading are exactly what you're thinking. Number 2, craft a strong, specific thesis statement. Take a position on the issue addressed in the prompt. Use strong, clear language. Number 3, that's where your mark comes in. Make an argument. Now remember, in the academic spaces, an argument is not because, or it does not occur as a result of a fight between person A and B. An argument is a body of claims. So a claim is anything that I say. And for it to be considered an argument and a fact, it must be backed up by evidence. Sorry, guys. Number 4. We are looking at summary, commentary ratio. Use strong, specific examples to support your argument, but be sure to adequately explain those examples. Now, this brings us to that point where you want to shine and show the marker that you know what you're speaking about, and then you quote a particular line or two from the text. Don't just quote. Explain what you mean. What does it mean in this particular paragraph to use this particular quotation as it appears on your argument? So your body paragraphs should be approximately 1/3 summary and 2/3 commentary. You may use short quotes because long quotes can be very much distracting and they can interrupt the flow of your essay. Avoid long quotations. There are people whose memory is fantastic. They remember verbatim words as they appear in a text. But try and avoid lengthy quotations. Learn to introduce your quotes. So do not begin body paragraphs with quotations. Embed your quotes 2 or 3 sentences into your paragraphs. Introduce the quote so that the reader knows that it is coming. And then finally, end well. Conclude your essay with a statement about the importance of the topic, the issue, the prompt, and make sure that your essay feels complete. Right. I want us to go to something else here. Right, okay, I'm going to come back to this. Let's share. Hey guys, give me a moment here. Oh, okay, let's just go through this quickly. The introduction must have a hook. Now, we have a number of ways to come about with a hook. Just like in the musical sense, every song in the introductory part should have a hook. So that hook briefly states a notable fact or two about the work you have studied. Make sure you refer to the author by surname, not first name, and that you underline the title of the text. Now, I want to say this to you Hamlet learners. Remember, we have Hamlet the character and Hamlet the title. So you need to distinguish for the marker who is the Hamlet you are referring to. So we need to know which one of the two Hamlets. So rephrase the essay prompt to simply state the how or the why. The assumption made in the prompt brings about the reader's enlightenment from the text. And then you create your thesis statement by rewording what is being asked of you in the prompt. I'm going to show you what we mean by that. Your body paragraphs, remember, every paragraph must have a topic sentence. It must have supporting arguments, and it must have a conclusion. So make sure that your body paragraphs have topic sentences. They have facts that you bring in. Remember, it's only one fact per paragraph. And then you can use a phrase or a quotation from the text that you are assessed in. And then finally, in your conclusion, where there is a restating of a thesis, where you say briefly how it has enlightened the reader, and or how the reader is enlightened by your discussion. And then you state the works, the work, timeless appeal and value from this particular work that you are working with. Right, I want us to look at an example here. Hopefully you can see. Just give me a clap to indicate to me that you can see the example. Thank you so much. Now, all right, I see we are on Dorian, and that's not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be on Hamlet. All right, there we are. Again, guys, we know that during your exams, you hardly read instructions. Let us remind each other that in this section, you answer only the play you have studied. We know your friend from Queens may be studying Othello, and they come back and they tell you and they relate Othello to you, and you feel excited, you feel this particular play and you love it. But there are certain discussions within Othello that your friend might not have exposed you to, and it's going to be very much limiting for you to answer this question because we have no clue what we are talking about. Let me use Life of Pi as an example. We may look at anthropomorphism. character. Right. Let's look at the latter part of our question, the instruction. So, our instruction is as clear as a whistle. Your response should take the form of a well-constructed essay. Now, please note that any essay has an introduction, now you may use a tag approach or a tackle approach to introduce your essay. Now, this is a title, and the title must be underlined. The author, who wrote it, what is the general statement of discussion, your thesis. Now, your general statement of discussion or thesis should be anchored by the role of women contributes to the attitude and actions of the main character. So in Jaco, we call these the key words. All right, let me fix my spelling there. And the outline. Make your mark. Find it easy to follow your essay. This is what my essay is aiming to achieve. Or the following foci are going to be looked at in my discussion. First, I will look at that. After which I will look at this. Moreover, I will look at that. And consequently, I will conclude by this. It makes my job as a marker quite simple and easy because I am able to follow through and I already have an outline, a picture of the destination and how to get to it. So as I read, I am able to follow these, I want to landmarks to say, okay, now they're discussing this, or now this is where we're at, or this is where we are going to, and now this is how this learner is concluding. So candidates, remember you have a new name now, you're no longer called a learner, you are now a candidate. So as you go into the exam, make sure that at least you have practiced 3 or 4 essay questions and you gain the confidence as you practice. Right? Right. So this brings us to the end of the Hamlet session. If you are joining us for the first time today, unfortunately, we have looked at the Hamlet contextual questions the previous week. However, there is a video that is on YouTube, which you can access and watch. So tomorrow, we will take a break. We are not going to have a session. But on Sunday, we will have a 4-hour session with breaks in between, because we are going to look at least 3 poems. And the rest of next week is also going to be focusing on 3 poetry questions per day. So I want you, by the time you sit for the exam, you have a fresh approach to all 12. Remember, we can't afford to spot. We can't spot to say, oh, last year, this and that and this other poem were there. So it means this year, they're not going to be repeated. You'll be shocked. So at least let's cover all 12. I will send voice notes where I analyze in details. But when we session, we are sessioning for purposes of exam techniques. So if you did not listen to the voice note I sent, then it will be difficult for you to understand the examination technique. So the week next week, all the way to Sunday, we'll be focusing on poetry. That is the 12th scene and also the unseen poetry techniques. Right, this brings us to the end of the Hamlet session. Okay, Aza, I do see you've got a question. Let me allow your mic. Talk to me.
Good evening, sir. I wanted to ask
Hi.
if we can use personal pronouns in your introduction, since you used it as an example, but you said we shouldn't
Not
use
at
it. We
all.
should have.
Or maybe I've made a mistake. Avoid personal pronouns.
Even in the introduction.
And anyway, in the essay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right, guys. I can't unfortunately take questions. Please type me your question in the chat box, because now we are stepping into the time for the second. Okay, let me take Shanae. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Shanae, talk to me, please. Shanae Dowries.
Um, Sir, can you hear me?
I can.
Sir, for the Life of Pi essay, for the body paragraph, should you use the peel method?
Thank you so much, Shanae. We are going to use the peel methods throughout our body paragraphs. Whether you're doing Life of Pi, Othello, Hamlet, and Picture of Dorian Gray, once you get to the body paragraphs, you need to start using the peel method. Thank you, Shanae, for bringing that to my attention. Guys, I need to end here because the Crucible
Thank
group
you.
needs to come in now at 8. Please, guys, vacate the meeting so that we make space for the Crucible. You can,
Thank you.
however, send a message offline. So please don't hesitate to send me messages. I will check your messages after the last session and I will come back to you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you have gained a skill or two. All right, please, guys, leave the meeting. I'm waiting for you guys to leave the meeting so that we make room for the next group. Except for Mr. Kusam, you can't leave us. The rest can. Please, guys, hurry up. All right. I would take that. The ones we have now are the Crucible group. Can I see by show of hands that we have the right people? All right. All right. The Crucible group. I'm so excited that the Crucible group has grown in terms of number this year. A number of learners or schools have changed their drama to the Crucible. Right, let's get to business. Would like to welcome the colleagues coming in and also welcome all the learners coming in, whether you're joining us by way of the YouTube live stream, or you're joining us by way of Microsoft Teams. Would like to welcome you there. Right, let's get to business. Again, I'm going to keep saying this because in the academic spaces, we need to reference. We can't use people's work and pose it as if it were our own. Would like to honor Mrs. Matthews from Dinwiddie High School for putting this material together. So we are going to look at the use of or the writing sons. Please put down your hand. I'm still introducing. I'll take questions. Please note down what it is you have. I think it's Khoto. Please put your hand down as well. You will ask me questions later on. Thank you. Mrs. Matthews from Dinwiddie High, we highly and truly appreciate your contribution to our sessions. Please note, I do see some of you joined while I was busy with the Hamlet group, which means that our meeting will get cut before the time agreed upon. So as soon as it gets cut, we can still use the same link to rejoin so that we are able to complete whatever it is that is outstanding. Right. We are looking at general advice and tips on how to approach this question. You should be able to zoom in on your phone. In case you don't see that clearly, please zoom the text in. You should have it bigger on your screen. How do we then approach the essay topic? Number one, you make sure your thesis statement is clear. It is objective as well as multifaceted. So what is the point are you trying to make in your discussion? Remember, this type of writing is academic, and therefore it needs to use a very much formal language use and approach. So there's no room for slang, colloquial language, as well as contractions. You can't, don't, shouldn't, can never come into this type of a writing. So as you make your point, we call that point an argument. And this is what gives you marks, when you are able to argue a point, you are not only arguing, but that very argument needs to be backed up by evidence. So as you make your point, ensure to not leave the reader guessing. I mean, the last thing we wish to have at the marking center is a guess moment where we are trying to figure out what exactly it is you are trying to say. It's like that moment where a marker will just sit on their chair and ask a question, what are you trying to say? Because I am marking, but at the same time, I cannot figure what it is that you're saying. So with the previous group, I told them that throughout the year, their teachers have understood the way in which they write. But the next phase of marking is going to be done by someone whom you don't know, or someone who has no clue of your style of writing. So the worst thing you could do in this situation is try and be sassy in your writing. No, we don't want that. You have tried all of these types of communicative practices to to make your teacher excited with your writing. It's not time for excitement, exciting people and excitement. Don't make your reader get to a point where they need to guess. Because sometimes my guess would be contradictory to what it is exactly you're trying to convey. So be as specific as possible. By making use of examples and details to support your position. So sometimes a position can be analytical, explanatory, or argumentative. So as you explain, as you analyze, as you argue, be as clear as possible. In essence, all you want to do is to describe what a text is doing precisely and how it does that particular thing. So this is where you bring in your knowledge of irony, paradox, symbolism, point of view, tone, diction, and other literary rhetorical devices. Now, rhetorical devices, I need to make this clear, boys and girls. We are not looking at a rhetorical question in this case. We are looking at not a rhetorical question only. Let me make that clarity, because the rhetorical question is an art of a rhetoric. So we're looking at the use of your literary devices or your figures of speech or figurative language. We are looking at your punctuation, you're looking at your structure, you're looking at your diction, you're looking at tone, you're looking at imagery. So these should be very much clear as you discuss your point. Now, you should be able to use complex sentence structures to show your complicated ideas. And this is where you avoid ambiguity. Again, somebody asked before they wrote their paper one, Gonja, what is ambiguity? Ambiguity is when you're giving us a statement that has two possible answers, which is rather confusing. So don't be ambiguous in your discussion. Be as clear as a whistle. Your levels of interpretation must indicate the level in which you are. You are home language learners and you are in grade 12 and you have been exposed to this type of writing from grade 10 all the way to your grade 12 level. Maintain logic. Now, when we deal with logic, we are looking at sequence. How are you building your argument sequentially? We need to know by reading, all right, this is the first argument, or this is one argument that follows. All right, this one is a supporting argument, or this one is a concluding paragraph that sums up everything that has been discussed. Your character development or your characterization or character knowledge is very much critical at this point. Please note, you need to get the spelling of your characters correctly. Reverend Hale, Danforth, Proctor, John Proctor, Paris, Tituba, Elizabeth, Mrs. Putnam. At the marking center, we find Mrs. Putnam all of a sudden located in Othello. And we find Desdemona located in Hamlet. And then in the picture of Dorian Gray, we have Richard Parker coming in. And in Life of Pi, we have the orangutan coming in. There seems to be a confusion of characters. Make sure that you know your characters, you know how they are developed, you know their relationships with each other, and you know the impact of each character on the other character or in the entire setting, as well as the plot of the play. Now consider using these words to begin your sentences or your paragraphs. No, not paragraphs rather, because you would not begin a paragraph with a conjunction. But as you start engaging on arguments, although this character is considered a very upright character, it is worth noting that since he engages in a relationship with a very young girl, Abigail, we can consider him to be a very weak man because he has failed to control his appetite while he is a married man. Since he is married, he can't be engaged in extramarital affairs. So don't just write simple sentences. I mean, you are in grade 12 now. You have been taught your simple sentences, your compound sentences, your complex sentences, your compound complex sentences. Now, we need you then to showcase your know-how of these particular language structures and conventions. Now, learn to use active concrete verbs to describe what the literary significance of certain characters, symbols, settings, and tone. Now, looking at the word significance, you will get a question with regards to, by reference to line 4, explain the significance of A, B, and C. So significance is, why is this important at this point? Not just why is it important. Why is it important at this point? So we need to know the significance of certain characters. Why are they behaving in a certain way at a particular point of the play. Why are certain symbols very much significant at a particular point of a play, or the setting or the tone? This is significant because it demonstrates or it illustrates that the fear of witchcraft reveals that, or it signifies this. And the court represents this, which characterizes it as one of the ways in which people could be brought into a control where both state and the church are able to become symbols that portrays or indicate that. Again, don't just use plain language as if you are writing from a grade 8 or a grade 9 level of thinking. Now use prepositional phrases and adverbial clauses when, whenever, in the scene, after, before, between, besides, as a result, for instance, for example, during, and in essence. And also, for organizational purposes of your ideas, for logic and chronology, make use of transitional words. Consequently, Proctor dies. Accordingly, however, furthermore, moreover, similarly in this case, whereas, likewise, subsequently, thereupon, albeit, conversely, nevertheless. But ladies and gents, if you have never used these throughout grade 10, 11, and 12, my advice is don't try this at home. I mean, exam is not a platform for testing. You are being tested. But when you are not trying to test the ground, otherwise you will be found wanting. Right. Let us look at a couple of don'ts. What things am I not allowed to do as I write my essay? Number one, avoid personal pronoun use, such as I. I don't believe that Proctor is an evil man. No, you are being very much subjective. It is believed that, now you're being objective. In my opinion, no, avoid that. One would argue that objective. Mine in this essay is to bring an argument. No. The argument in this essay, yes. So try and avoid first person pronouns use. Number two, avoid beginning sentences with common dead words, such as it, there, a, and n. Don't use your dull words, such as got. He really was. No, guys, you are being very much, I want to use the right word here. Yes, you are trying to be flowery, but these words are unnecessary. Very much, a lot like. No. Don't merely summarize the play or the action. Analyze it. If Danforth does A, B, and C, don't just say Danforth is doing this and that. Tell us what it means in context. for him at that point found or being found to do a particular thing. Right. Don't use vague subjective descriptors. This is very much interesting. It is amazing or it is cool. That's very much informal. Don't use passive voice or to be verbs. Avoid that. Right. Let's look at some strategies that you need also to consider. Use very specific vocabulary. So don't be vague at all. And don't use abstract words. Remember the difference between abstract and concrete, because abstract words can make it difficult for your reader to know exactly what you mean. I mean, I get strange questions when I go around the schools for the SIP programs that I get called for. And learners would say, but why must I always think about the marker? I write the way I want. Yo, guys, that's very dangerous. You are really playing with fire. This is not the time to write what you want. You have a question in front of you, respond to it as clear as you can so that your reader knows exactly what you mean. Don't just assume that they will know. We won't know. You know what you mean when you use those terms, but it is likely that your reader is not sure. I said with the other group, we started picking a lot of learners' use of the word demure because it was in the social media spaces last year. It was overly used and all. And young people, maybe a certain teacher was making an example and they used that one word. And the learners began to pick it up and they ran with it. I may not know what that word means. Because remember, we are not your peers. Neither are we at your level. It's only your peers and the people within your level who will understand exactly what it is you mean. So the academia has the academe as the language. Keep it as formal and as clear as possible so that the one reading could understand and be able to allocate a mark worth your writing. Be sure that the words the reader is reading are exactly what you are thinking. Number 2, craft a strong specific thesis statement. We need you to take a position on the issue addressed in the prompt. So if the question says, with reference to the line above, discuss the extent to which you agree. We need you to take a position. Do you fully agree? Do you partially agree? Do you disagree or strongly disagree? If that does not come in your discussion, you are not going to get a good mark that you wish to have. So the marker in their marking process will have an expectation of picking up the level on which your view is positioned. Where are you with regards to this particular topic? Do you agree? You disagree? And if you agree, how much do you agree? Or I fully agree, or I partially agree. I don't agree at all. Or I can have a mixed response. I think at one point I agree because of that. But now, by contrast, on the other hand, I don't agree because of that. So you would have a mixed a mixed response or a one-sided response, response. We need to know the position on which you stand with regards to the issues addressed. Number three, make an argument. Now, an argument is not something that has to do with fighting. Every single day, we engage in argument. That's what the philosophy study says. Daily, our conversational practices or conventional practices, because when we teach you language, you need to know what is a language error, what is a structural error, what is a conventional error. So these are things that we are using every day. We use structures in language for our conventions. So in each and everyday experience, we engage in argument. We engage in discussions, points that we make, claims that we make. So a claim that you make, I believe Abigail had a right to treat Proctor the way she treated her towards the end of the play. That's an argument. It's a claim. All right, as a marker, I want to know why you say that. Why are you saying that? Then that is where you are going to then unpack your argument by using evidence from the text. Learners, please don't forget to fill in or complete the register. I nearly forgot that. Right, number 4, we're looking at the commentary ratio. So as you comment in your body paragraphs, we are looking at approximately 1/3 of summarization and 2/3 of commentary. We need to be able to say, okay, you're summarizing this as you use an example from the drama, then comment on it. Give us an argument that is commentary. 5, use short quotes. Avoid long quotations because they can be very much distracting and can interrupt the flow of your essay. Number 6, learn to introduce your quotes. Do not begin paragraphs with quotations because your quotation must be embedded in the sentences within your paragraphs. And then you end well. Conclude your essay with a statement about the importance of the topic, the issue, or the prompt. Make sure your essay feels complete. Right, let's move on. Let's look at your introduction and your body paragraphs. Ladies and gents, we are fully aware that you have been studying, you have been exposing yourselves to a variety of past papers as well as the suggested marking guidelines. If you have realized, for your poetry essay, your novel essay, and your drama essay, the essays are presented in point form. Now, that point form is absolutely not your business. It is point form for the markers because we discuss those points to say we expect learners to discuss around these arguments. All of those are points of arguments that are expected a learner or from a learner. So do not, a big do not, write your essay in point form. You must have your introduction, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. Now, a reminder, it is within our body paragraphs that we make use of the peel method, where you make your point, you give us an evidence, you explain what you mean by this evidence, and how is the evidence and the explanation linking back to the main discussion of this particular essay. So remember, your introduction must be very much interesting in that it should have a hook. I mean, those who are into music, they would understand that each song has a hook. None of the songs we listen to are without that technique. Because for us to be very much in love with that song, once we hear this song, we are always right at the beginning grabbed by the hook. So the marker is going to look for the hook, where you briefly state a notable fact or two about the work you have studied. So we are looking at whether you have studied Dorian Gray, Life of Pi, and in your case, The Crucible. Make sure you refer to the author by surname, not first name. So I may say, in his timeless work, and then I use the surname of the author. So I need to be able to have the name of the author in my introduction, as well as the title of the text, which must be underlined. Your case is quite different from the Othello Hamlet group, because we have two Othellos. We have Othello the character and Othello the title. We have Hamlet the character and Hamlet the title. So in your case, you are safe because there is no one called the Crucible. But nonetheless, or nevertheless, you are still required to underline the title. Let's hurry up. So your body paragraphs, you remember, each paragraph has a topic sentence, supporting arguments, and the concluding sentence. So each paragraph must have one fact or one assertion. You're not going to discuss two or three different things in one paragraph. Keep one paragraph at a minimum of one fact or one assertion. And then your concluding paragraph question 14 or question 15. In a case where you answer both, we will mark one and you will lose the other. And ladies and gents, losing 25 marks at this stage is no child's play. You don't want, out of everything you rewrite, you do not wish to rewrite English home language. And I truly mean it. You truly don't wish to rewrite English home language. Ask everyone who has rewritten English home language. So you do it and you do it right so that you don't come back. Right. Now, there are three things from this question. Number one, we need to have an understanding of a statement of discussion. Now, that's the first thing. Let us look at what are we discussing? The role of women in Salem contributes to the outcome of the play. Right. It's a very wonderful topic that is in front of us. We're looking at the role that they play. But again, the question arises, who are these women? So we can look at either Tituba, Mrs. Putnam, Abigail, or Abby. We are looking at, who's this? Mrs. Proctor, Elizabeth, to name a few. So, what role has been played by each of these women that contributed to the outcome? Now, the question is, what is this outcome? You need to be as clear as you can in your discussion. Don't just read without understanding what it is exactly that you're required to do. So now, we know that this set is set in Salem, and there are a number of issues going on. Remember, you're not going to focus on these issues, but we are looking at the role these women played to contribute to the outcome or to the ending of this play. How does it end? And how do these women, or what role do these women have in how everything pans out? That's the statement of discussion. Why do I need to understand the statement of discussion? It's quite important and quite simple. This is what my essay should be about. There is no way I'm going to then tell a story. This happened and that took place. So-and-so did this to so-and-so, and then so-and-so went to court. We already know that. All we need you to do, discuss the role. And then, as you make your argument, you make your point, you bring evidence. This is seen when Elizabeth Proctor is found doing A, B, and C. which means that now you're explaining that particular evidence, and then you clinch it by linking it back to the topic of your discussion or your point or your argument. So now that is our statement or general statement of discussion. Right. Number two, we need to understand the second part of this question. We are looking at now the question. What am I to do with this topic? I am required to critically discuss. What am I critically discussing? The validity of the above statement with reference to the play as a whole. Now, here's our key to our discussion. Is this valid? Is it true? Now, if this is true, I need to refer to the play as a whole and bring about instances that are taking place in the play that makes this statement a valid one. All right, Mogane, am I allowed to say this is invalid? Yes, you can. You can find it invalid. Or could it be possible that I could mix my argument? At one point, this happens, which validates the statement. And by contrast, on the other hand, this takes place, which invalidates the statement. So you can have a mixed response or a single-sided response where you state whether it is valid or not valid. Finally, we'll look at the instruction. Boys and girls, go in that exam with a highlighter. You need to highlight, as I have highlighted in the general statement of discussion, in the question, and also in the instruction, so that before you start writing, you know exactly what it is your essay is going to focus on, rather. Right. In your response, let's change color. Your response should take the form of a well-constructed essay. I love the fact that it must be well-constructed, which means I cannot use point form. Let me reiterate. No point form. But I saw the name of, there's a use of point form. That's not for you, that's for us. Stay away from elders' business or adults' form of approaching your work. Yours is simple. Give us a well-constructed essay. What does it mean? It should have an introduction. And your introduction may take a tag approach. That's where you give us the title, the author's name. Remember, we don't call them by their first name, but we use their surname. and a general statement of discussion, which is also known as a thesis statement. Right. If you don't want to use a tag, you may want to use, or you may wish to use, a tackle approach. Now, introduction. Tackle is the title, the author, keywords, that could be your thesis or your general statement of discussion, and your outline. Give us an outline of how are you going to indicate if the general statement of discussion is either valid or invalid. Now the choice is yours. Make sure to structure your essay properly. Right, as I close, before you sit for your paper 2 exam, please ensure that maybe or perhaps you practice 2 or 3 essay topics from the previous years and put these things into order. Why am I advising you to do so? This gives you a great confidence that by the time you sit, it is not something that is very heavy to do. I nearly forgot the most important thing. My uncle used to say, you can't say important, you must say it's important. Now, the important thing is for you to plan. We always get a question, must I plan? The answer is a definite yes. Make sure you show planning in a form of a mind map or a chart or a diagram. It's up to you. Or you can also use what we call outlining. That's where you write introduction and you put a few points that you're going to put in there. Paragraph 1, few points. Paragraph 2. It is up to you how you plan. It's very much insane, learners, to mark an essay that was never planned. And those essays, in most cases, don't get good marks because there was no plumb line. There was absolutely no plan to guide the person in their argument. Some plans are found right after the essay. Again, avoid that because you are not different from someone who throws a party today and then start planning the following day. I mean, that's crazy. Avoid, I know I might get into trouble for this, but guys, I always ask my learners to focus on this one. Because sometimes you waste time trying to count words. I believe as a teacher, if you give me a minimum of 2 pages and a maximum of 2.5, you have done justice. There is absolutely no way you can give me 1 page and want me to believe that that's 400 to 450. Yes, you may have a very small handwriting, but it's not possible. At least 2 pages minimum and 2.5. As I close, Tomorrow we're going to take a break. We are resting. Remember, I'm still not feeling well. So I need to take a break here and there. So tomorrow I'm just going to stay and just watch TV the whole day and rest. But Sunday, we will have a 4-hour session because we need to deal with 3 poems. Of course, we may not cover the entire 4 hours. If I complete the 3 poems earlier than 4 hours, we will be done. I am not reteaching those poems. I am going through question or answering techniques of those questions. I will, however, tomorrow, while I'm resting, make recordings of the 3 poems for you to listen to, after which you should be ready for the Sunday presentation and meeting to understand what it means, what the themes are, and using the SWIFT method to understand that particular poem. So please make sure you check that. Guys, because I don't want to get into the Othello group's time, I'll only allow 1 question. The rest of you, please make sure to type your question in the text box. Please do remember to complete the attendance register. Azizepo, I'm not going to take a long question because at 8 we need to start with the Othello group. Azizepo, what's your question?
Hi, sir. I was wondering, with the 3 poems that we're doing on Sunday, what time do we start? Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will send you the times before I sleep today. We're not going to start late, obviously. Usually when I use Sundays, I do use 4 o'clock, 5 and 6. So I will confirm before I sleep. So it won't be from 6. Otherwise, we're going to sleep late. Are you covered?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Someone wants me to share the register. Okay, let me try and get the link to the register. Okay, there it is. Kosam, if you can, would you kindly share the link to the register for our YouTube candidates so that they also have an opportunity to. The register has been posted. Ladies and gents, if you are not the Othello group, please vacate the meeting. If you are the Othello group also, please leave the meeting so that we start at exactly 8 o'clock so that we are able to move from the start of the session to the end without being cut through. Everyone, do vacate the meeting. That includes me and Mr. Kosam as well, so that we don't mess up with the meeting. Can everyone please leave the group? And at exactly 8 o'clock, we reconvene. All right. See you at 8, those who are the Othello group. Good evening, everyone. I just need to check if you can hear me. Please do give me an indication by use of a thumbs up so that we can see if we are together. I can't see any hand. All right, thank you, Tinashe. All right, that indicates to all of us that we can hear each other. All right, let me test if you can see the text on the screen. Can you see my text? All right, thank you. All right, give me a moment, guys. We shall begin shortly. You should be able to zoom in to see the text quite clearly. A warm welcome to everyone, dear colleagues, as well as the learners. Please take note that the link to today's register has been posted on the text box. Please do make sure you fill it in or you complete it after the session or during the session. It depends on whether or not you are able to multitask. Number two, we will take a break tomorrow. We are not going to have a session because I need to rest, but we will meet on Sunday. That'll be 4, 5, 6. I'm going to start with 3 poems. I will record the first tonight and the next 2 tomorrow. So please take time to listen to those recordings so that when we meet on Sunday, you have the analysis fresh in your mind and you're able to link the understanding to the types of questions and the types of answers you are required to provide. So, yeah, that is it. Then the entire week next week is also going to be focusing on poetry from Monday until Sunday. And then a day before you write your paper 2, we will have another session where we just brush up. And it is within that session that we are not reteaching anything, also not taking content-related questions. We will be taking questions related to answering techniques, right? Would like to give a shout out to Mrs. Matthews at Dinwiddie High School for a very great resource she has built. I am going to use it in today's presentation, and hopefully you will have an understanding of what needs to be done. Right, just to make sure, this is the last group and it is the Othello group. Right, let's look at some general advice and tips with regards to how to approach an essay topic. Number 1, you need to make sure that your thesis statement is clear, objective, and multifaceted. We also need to know, what point are you trying to make? Now, please note that the study in philosophy states that in our daily communicative practices, we have a nature of points that we make. And it calls these points arguments. So if I ask you a question, what is your argument? This is not a point where you start raising your point to say, but I am not arguing, or I am not fighting. An argument is a point you make that contains a claim within it. If I say Amapiano is the greatest current genre in music, the claim is that it is the greatest. Now I have hyperbolized my point. And not only the greatest, but I have looked at it as a greatest current. Now we've got other genres which may be great genres, but I have used a superlative to express my opinion or what seems to be factual to me. So that's the point I am making. But as you make your point, you need not leave the reader guessing. The reader must understand what it is exactly you are saying. Now, it is at this point, ladies and gents, that the knowledge of the text with which you work is going to be tested. If you were not in class when Othello was taught, not in class when past papers were discussed, and you did not even take time to read Othello on your own, then you are in trouble, because you are one of those people who will try and retell a story instead of giving an analysis. So you must be very much specific to make sure that the reader is not set up to guess what it is you're trying to say. Remember, you have been marked by your good educators throughout the year. But at this point, you are going to be marked by other learners, good educators, who may not know or who may not have been exposed to your style of writing. So your educator have been accustomed to how you speak, because all of us have a speaking, writing imprint. So this is why my family would pick up if it is me speaking on a WhatsApp text or note. So this is how they are not easily scammed, because they're able to pick up to say, this is not the way he speaks. So that is the voice writing print. So your educator might have had opportunities to learn that, but the other educators did not. So try and be as specific as possible by making use of examples and details to support your position. Don't just make fluid or fluid arguments and points without giving specific examples and details to support your analysis your explanation, and your argument. We need to be as clear, because at this time, we are not testing the waters. It's not time to test. It's crunch time and it's injury time. So you need to make sure that you do it right. So in essence, we want you to describe what a text is doing and precisely how it does it, by the knowledge of, or the ability to pick up where the author has used irony. What is paradoxical? What is symbolical here? What is the perspective, also known as the point of view? What is the tone? What is the diction, the word choice? And what are the literary rhetorical devices? Now, I said with the previous two classes, rhetorical devices are not only exclusive of other devices, because we always look at a rhetorical question only, but we forget that rhetorical devices come from a body of work called the art of the rhetoric. Now, that's the art of speech, the ability to speak and be understood by using a variety of devices, such as your rhetorical question, figurative language, imagery, tone, structure of your words, and so forth and so on. So we need you to be very much aware of these. The next point, you might need to make use, not might rather, you need to make use of complex sentence structures to show complicated ideas. Remember, the level on which your English is, it is a home language level. So we are expecting your writing to be at that level. With this in mind, you have been writing literary essays since grade 10 until where you are. So we need you to be able to avoid ambiguity. Don't be ambiguous in what you're writing. Don't give us two possible meanings. Again, don't make us guess. I mean, if you say the money was found by the tree, you're creating a problem for the marker, because I am not sure who found the money. Did the tree find the money, or the money was found by or next to the tree? So always ensure that there is no ambiguity in what you are writing. Make sure that the levels of your interpretation are of a great standard, indicating the level at which you are, which is a metric level. We want to pick up logic, and we want to pick up if you have your character development knowledge or your characterization. You need to know what is typical of each character you're dealing with. I looked at the issue that a number of learners mix match characters. You find a character that's supposed to be in the Crucible, you find that character in Othello. The character who's supposed to be in Othello is now visiting and having some vacation in Hamlet. Or if you write your characters, their names are spelled incorrectly. As you are approaching the day on which paper 2 is going to be written, make sure to remember all your characters. You have done character sketches with your educators throughout the year. Go back, revisit, know which character belongs to which set work, how each character relates to the other, what are the relationships between characters, and what are the impacts of each character on the other or in the driving forward of this particular play. Right. Sentences that begins with although, considering the fact that because this and this is the case, this becomes a problem if this takes place. While we see this happening, we discover that since this was the case, that becomes the outcome. Whether or not this is taking place, that is the ending. So be able to make use of such words to also heighten or bring about the complexity within your discussion. Now, use active or concrete verbs. Now, this is where you describe what the literary significance of certain characters, symbols, setting, and tones. Now, the word significance means the importance of. The importance of this at this point of the play. Why is it important that Iago at this point acts this way? We are not looking at his importance throughout the play. You are given a line reference and you are asked to, with reference to line such and such, discuss the significance of Iago's action at this point. Why is it important at this point for him to act this way? So again, you need to know these particular things. What are particular symbols? The setting. We are looking at where this is taking place. So we are looking at the fact that Othello is set at this particular place. So you need to be able to have your setting knowledge on par, as well as your plot knowledge, how the story develops from start to finish. So this demonstrates that. And it is illustrated by this, which reveals that this particular character feels this way, which signifies that these characters portray that. And it symbolizes that, or it indicates the anger that represents A, B, and C. So the proper prepositional phrases and adverbial clauses, when, whenever, in the scene, after, before, between, besides, as a result of, for instance, for example, during which time, or during, or in essence. And then you need to make sure, okay, we've got 14 minutes. Again, it indicates someone entered before time. So in 14 minutes, we are going to be cut off. And then we'll have to use the same link to rejoin so that we complete the session. Learners, learn to listen. Right. Transitional words and phrases help to organize your ideas for chronological and chronological purposes. Now, this is where your planning comes into play. Failure to plan at the beginning will yield to a disorganized writing. So right before you start with your essay, you need to plan. We don't plan after we write our essay. Transitional words such as Consequently, this character is killed accordingly as instructed by. However, the opposite takes place. Furthermore, one would argue that whereas this take place, likewise, subsequently thereupon, conversely, nevertheless, moreover. Now, I said with the previous two groups, if you are not used to making use of such transitional words, don't try this at home. Because this is not time for exploration. You had all the year through to explore, but this is not the right time. Now, let's look at the don'ts, the things you need to avoid to do. Number one, avoid making use of first person pronouns or pronouns, such as I believe that, Othello, or Rodrigo. Me, myself. Things you write, guys. Me, myself. That's very much incorrect. So avoid the use of me or mine. Number two, don't start sentences with common dead words like it, they, a, or an. And avoid using thou words such as got. This has got to mean, or this is really, or it is very much, or a lot like. I mean, these give a feel that is very much informal. It makes your writing very much superficial. Don't merely summarize the action. If you are referred to a particular line and you are asked something or you are asked to discuss this particular action, don't just give a summary. Why is this person acting this way? Is what we need. Don't use vague descriptors. And this is a cool gesture. Remember, this is academic writing. It's an essay. There are rules of engagement, and we need to ensure that we stick by the rules. Don't use passive voice or to be verbs, such as is, was, were, am, are, being. So avoid that. Now let's look at some strategies to use. You are to use a very specific vocabulary, because vague and abstract words can make it difficult for your reader to know exactly what you mean. Remember, at this point, you are not marked by your precious educator. You are marked by someone else's precious educator. So make sure that that particular marker understands fully what it is that you are trying to convey, or what message are you trying to convey. You know what you mean when you use those terms, but it is likely that your is not sure. We had a use of the word demure. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but last year it was a big word, and learners began to use it loosely in their reading, their writing and all of that. I may not know what demure means, Remember, you are the 2K groups of people or group of people. You have your own ways of talking and discussing that we, the ATs, may not understand. So you need to have the marker in your mind. You might be marked by someone who's a 70s child. They may not understand some of the expressions you use. So try and be as formal as you can so that your marker understands fully well what it is that you're trying to say. So number 2, or rather, be sure that the words the reader is reading are exactly what you are thinking. Number 2, craft a strong, specific thesis statement. This is where you take a position on the issue addressed in the prompt. You use a strong and a very clear language. Number 3, make an argument. What's your point? What are you trying to say? So make it clear. This is my point. So and so is a cruel man. Point taken. Then we want to see how you develop that. So as you make a point, don't just summarize the cruelty. Show. We are looking at showing and telling. So don't tell us. Show it. By their action of this, their cruelty is revealed. So we need you to be very much argumentative, and you bring that up or across in very simple terms. Don't just answer the prompt. Look for ways to extend and expand the argument, and then offer the solutions if the prompts ask you to consider a problem. Look for the broader significance of the topic or the issue. Let's look at the commentary ratio. In your discussion or the body paragraphs, we are looking at about 1/3 summary and 2/3 commentary. How are you summarizing? You're summarizing by telling us what is happening. Great. That's evidence. Comment on it. Yeah, make sure that you make a commentary that justifies that summary. 5, use short quotes. Keep the actual quote length as less than a complete sentence, because long quotes can be destructive. And then 6, introduce your quotations by avoiding to begin body paragraphs with a quote. So your sentences must be embedded with quotes. So in fact, your quotes must be embedded in your sentences. And then you work your way to explaining them. And number 7, end well. Conclude your essay with a statement about the importance of the topic, the issue, or the prompt, and make sure that your essay feels complete. As a reader, I need to be able to pick up that you have completed without having questions. Remember, I am not with you at the marking center, and therefore I cannot call you to say, come sit here. What do you mean here? It doesn't sound like you have completed or concluded your argument. I need to be able to pick up that you have concluded your argument at this particular point. Right. I want us to look at the structure of your essay. Remember, you're writing a structure of a well-constructed essay. that must have an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. Now, I want to start here. You have used previous papers and you have seen the essays written on the marking guidelines and presented in point form. Now, the point form presentation of answers is not for you. That's for markers. These are points the examiner expects you to discuss. And as many as they appear, they allow a variety of responses that we agree upon when we discuss the memo. So we don't want you to present your essay in that manner. Avoid that. That is just for markers. Your essay must have an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. Now, it is within the body paragraphs that you are going to use the peel method, where you put your point across, give us the evidence, you explain the evidence, and you link the evidence and explanation back to the argument. Right. And then you have your concluding paragraph where you restate the thesis and say briefly how it engenders enlightenment and entertainment. So please, guys, make sure that your essay has a well constructed structure. Right. I want us then to look at an example from the previous paper. I don't see the text. Okay, let me just stop sharing. Can you guys see the paper? I can't continue without your response. Can you please give me an indication? Give me a thumbs up if you're able to see. Oh, there it is. Right. If I can see it on my device, it means it is quite clear. You may wish to zoom in so that you are able to clearly see. Right. Now, I want us to begin by looking at the instructions. Learners, learn to read and understand instructions. The first instruction requires you to answer either question